that I have 2 coffees, and there's not much in this world that can make a man happier than having 2 coffees.
2 coffees is the best, and it's like equivalent to how amazing it was to dual wield between Halo 1 and is it 2?
Oh yes,
2 is the introduction.
This one of these is my plasma pistol, and the other one is my battle rifle. This is the new combo
Dumb.
right here.
I always know, I gotta hang in with the pistol, right? You gotta keep the pistol if we're talking about early Halo.
Or like the OG double SMG.
Double SMG.
It's pretty OP
man,
combo.
that is, and I'm really not sure if at this point the topic is too old or too young.
I know, like as a kid, like growing up playing video games, I always hated when people kept talking about Mario. I was like, let him die, Jesus. Let that Italian guy die already. In peace. Stop bringing him back.
Yeah.
Talking about him. Are we at that point with Halo? I don't know, because there's a new Halo coming out. So
there is. But there were new Star Wars, and I don't know. There's the classics, and it could be. All right, well, down to business, even though that's definitely important. So a little bit of housekeeping. So just last night we got word that there is going to be an easing on the stay-at-home order for us here in Colorado. I'm not sure what that's like for everybody else. It seems like there's a different approach depending on where you're at, what state, what region,
state
to state, country to country. But Colorado's kind of falls in the middle, and I think has, but for Denver, not an excessive amount of population density. We're not, even Denver's not a Manhattan, right? Yeah. So we kind of knew that we might be ahead on some of those things, but Colorado's also very careful. Like, it's not, we're very conscious about health in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows people are fit. It seems like everybody and their dog is some sort of like pro athlete in some way. When I came from the Midwest, and I'm it's gotten better, but when I remember, if you rode a bike, you were either like considered homeless or a hero. Like, if people saw you outside, they'd be like, why is he on a bike? Oh, he's working hard. Or if you look a little tattered, they'd be like, poor guy, I should give him a ride. Right? It's not super common to see that. So, but
it's like that pulling over, asking a guy running if he needs a ride somewhere.
Yes, exactly. Like, sir, do you need help? I'm like, well, the city has decided not to put sidewalks in. That's one problem, but I guess I'm a natural runner. So there's that. But in Colorado, if you come out here, if anybody's not from here or just moved here, you'll realize instantly that everyone is some kind of athlete. And you probably have multiple sports that you're involved in. The kids are in multiple sports. And I think that does curate a culture that allows us to have a niche like parkour and have a broad, people be interested in that. It's this right combination of experience and just the right place to be for that interest. But all in all, we're concerned about health is what I'm getting at. Colorado is not a place that's just gonna let, ignore stuff or ignore science or anything like that. But we're very practical here. I love Colorado for that. Super practical place. Like, they're like, we got to get back to work. So the governor said the 27th is when things will be relaxed, and we're having something that's called safer at home, which is sort of a reduction. And they've been shooting for what they say, like 70-80% social distancing, and now they're easing that up another 10 or 20% through this, and they're going to allow some businesses to come back. Personal training is in that. Luckily, that's something that our work falls underneath, definitely. So we don't know the details of it, but the good news of the day is that it looks like in April 27th, to some capacity, we'll have people back in the gym and we'll be training again.
Yeah, there's some light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah,
definitely.
You will finally be able to see your coach in some capacity.
Yeah, other than virtually, which has been great. We know people crave that direct connection, even if it's at a distance. Mm-hmm. So we'll be coming up with some. I think we'll come up with the best way to do that, and I'm not going to lean on government. I'm going to lean on us to come up with what the information we can gather and find the safest way to bring people back and be training together and take things seriously. But we got to take health seriously. It's what we do. emotional.
I think it's important to note too that we're not planning on relying entirely on government guidelines to tell us on what is the best practice for our gym to start that coaching process again. That we will look at, because we are a very specific niche and our facility is very different from any other. So if the guidelines suggest this, we obviously want to follow the guidelines, but we're not going to use only the guidelines if we feel that an additional step on top of that is best practice to keep everybody safe. That we want to make sure that we do those steps, and we're going to be talking about that. So whatever the guidelines come out, that's not going to be the full picture and the only picture for us. We're definitely going to be looking at having our own precautionary measures and cleaning and all that sort of stuff too. So
and to be honest, we were doing a lot of that earlier on, and we had the background of always had the martial arts background and discipline, and that's like this is your dojo. This is not like some 24-hour gym or rec center that you just run through and tear up. Like, people typically come in here and say, on the spectrum of gyms that I've been in that do parkour or do work, you guys keep running pretty tidy ship. Now, so we'll move forward from that into some other housekeeping, which is the improvements that we've made even in the last week for the facility. Our chief architect Justin has built some stuff. You want to talk about what we built?
I think we're all missing swinging around a little bit too much. So I think we made this pretty awesome setup over here for. I think the goal was to make it for intermediate level athletes. We had some really hard laches in here that I probably only did once, and Olaf probably did a handful more times, and then we have some super easy swinging techniques that don't help too many people grow. So I think we added a really good a skill gap over there with this new bar setup.
So what is for those who are just being introduced to swinging, for those who know swinging, we've added some additional targets for landing that are at height, and then we've also added some consecutive bars that allow for consecutive laches and precisions on top of the bar. There's enough room to swing for that, and that's something we've been missing for a while. But for somebody who's new, what makes swinging in parkour different than, say, going ham on a salmon ladder, or even swinging on some of these reality scenarios, right? What makes it
the salmon ladder? For those of you that don't know, is the hooks that come out and you jump the bar up with swinging or whatever. For those of you listening that have never seen it, that's
the ninja folks will know. But
ninja folks will know. But if you don't, it's that where you're jumping the bar upstream is kind of the idea, and then salmon ladder. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, laches are tough. I think the laches, most certainly, you have to almost know all of the other techniques in parkour before you do laches, because laches they're just such a different modality, right? Everything else has been on your feet. Maybe you've been using your hands to assist your feet in jumping over something with a vault, but...
So what's a lache? What makes a lache not just swinging at something?
You're swinging and throwing yourself to another bar. But I think the part that makes laches the most difficult is that you have to combine it with, most certainly, always a precision or another lache. Whereas most other, vaults or jumps can be just a singular move, but laches are always a combo. You always have to, jump and then grab the bar, and then you have to land on it. So there's 3 moves, right? So, with the lache, I think it's like that golden zone. It's just like what every athlete, once you get good, laches are what I don't know, prove it.
They're arguably the top tier parkour technique, right? Obviously there's the whole widespread of parkour techniques that are defined, and then ones that we can't define because they're just so abstract. But I would say that the lache is absolutely one of those top tier ones, because there isn't, to my knowledge right now, I don't know any other sport ever that's had that move as part of its staple moves, right?
Right. Even you could argue gymnastics is close, but
even
it's
then,
not the
right?
same.
You have men's high bar, and that's a single bar. You have women's uneven bar. Men used to do uneven bar, or the uneven bar way back in the day, but then they stopped. But women have done uneven bar, and they have some really amazing dismounts from the high bar to the low bar and vice versa. But none of it's a lache, and none of it's greater than 6 feet. And then men's high bar is a single bar. So even though you have really amazing releases and dismounts, you never have any regrabs. You never see the same mechanics that we see in a lache in any other sport. It is arguably the most unique parkour technique that we have.
Yeah, it's very parkour, I would say. You just don't see it. And the other thing that's notable about it is that the equipment is although you tend to see it on steel bars, is not exclusively steel bars, and the steel bars don't really have flex, right? So if we're going the direction of, oh, I'm going to swing and regrab on a salmon ladder or some sort of apparatus for ninja, or I'm going to be in gymnastics and I'm going to use the bar for kip. I mean, that's a wooden bar that has flex. The athletes are getting used to that, leveraging it. Lache competence is on a fixed object. Typically it's not moving, and it is tougher sometimes to do techniques when you don't have any flex in that bar. But then you'll see laches used on tree branches as well. So it's a competence that's very dynamic, I think.
Yeah.
Do you guys know where the word comes from?
Lache. The spelling's pretty butchered, but essentially in French it means to loosen or to release.
Oh.
So.
Do you have a better French pronunciation? Am I putting you on the spot for that?
No,
I'm just
lache
wondering.
correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm just wondering, lache, right? That's what I'm working on my laches. So that's awesome. So what makes a lache? What makes a lache setup ideal for beginners and for those with experience?
It's got to be lower for sure.
I guess, yeah, what's the difference between a beginner setup for a lache and what an intermediate or an advanced athlete's looking for in a lache? And how have the designs that you've added to the gym essentially filled that gap between those two?
Yeah, I don't think that's too big, or it's a big of a challenge. I think it's just height really is the main thing. Also, the width of the bar can change. Little kids have little hands like me. They can't wrap around these 2-inch bars. So we have a smaller diameter set over there. But I think it's lower to the ground, and then obviously the distance between bars is much closer. You don't usually see the youngins lacheing bar to bar quite yet, which a bar to bar swing lache for adults is, a good one's right at 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet. So
in distance.
Yeah. For little guys,
that's athletic. Like we're talking about athletes at this point. This is not like go home and try
level 3
it.
students for us for sure.
Yeah.
And then it's about 2 feet for little guys. I would is from what I've seen in the gym here. But really, I think the most important technique for kids to learn is not the bar to bar technique first. It's bar to the ground, right? And that you have to start on the lower surface. So we have 6-foot bars here because if you're swinging and your target is always the ground, you're always trying to get back down to a safer spot, then you just can't start on an 8-foot bar when you're learning to swing for kids.
Well, yeah, also when you're, only 3.5, 4 feet tall, like an 8-foot bar is, a 4 or 5 foot drop. And then with the swing, of course, you're not dropping straight down. If you're swinging, you're always dropping to the ground at an angle, which is, of course, a difficult thing to adjust to if you're not used to it. So, so a low bar, like 5, 6, and we have that now over there, right? What is the height of that bar that you installed, or is that 4?
The new one? Oh, yeah, it's 4.
It's 4, right? Yeah. Which is actually really great because then they can always put their feet down if they're like, I feel uncomfortable with how big my swing is. They can just put the feet down and stop, right?
Yeah, so I think that not only and I think this may be one of the reasons why laches are mostly, I guess I'm nouning them, right? So why 2 lache is really very parkour and also very rare. Anthropological side note, did you guys know that it's actually really rare in the animal kingdom to be able to swing?
Yeah.
And a lot of people associate monkeys with swinging. They're like, oh, you're a monkey, but it's really a characteristic of the apes.
Yeah.
Right. So you actually, typically, I think you really only have like under 10 creatures that are swinging like this. So let's talk about that real quick, just so that people learn to see. There's really only a few creatures that swing like this, and it's because we have
there's
3.
one king.
There is one king. We'll tell you.
one
We'll
king
I'll let
swings.
you drop who the king is and why in a second, so that we lure people into learning accidentally here. So 360 degrees range of motion has a lot to do with where the scap is positioned and the makeup of the shoulder in apes and humans. And so we have the great apes, and then we have humans who have 360 degree range of motion. And then we also have some New World monkeys. But most monkeys, and by New World monkeys, these are monkeys that are like a spider monkey is a New World monkey. And I believe that they're called that from South America.
Yeah, tails in Americas.
Yep, tails in the Americas. And so you got those spider monkeys, and those guys have extra weapons. I mean, the tail, they can just they could probably lache from their tail with a flyaway and a freaking regrab. That'd be sick. All right, so you got these spider monkeys just doing their own thing, right? And then you have the semi-bipedal apes, and then humans. And what the difference is, just so everybody knows, that the position in the scap matters. People are like, well, yeah, but I see monkeys swinging all the time. Monkeys actually have scaps and shoulders that are more like dogs. They sit on the side, right? As versus our back, we have this wide, action figure back, right? So most monkeys actually have the shoulders along the side. They're more like a dog, and we do see them swinging, but they're actually primarily quadrupedal, depending on tomato, and that means they walk on all four. Humans and the great apes are different, but there is one king. There is one king, Jesse, and who is the king of laches in all animals, I guess?
It is the almighty gibbon.
The almighty gibbon, which is actually for some reason gets the name, I don't know why they call them this, primatologists or whatever, I think call them a lesser ape, which is really, that's messed up.
Rude.
That's the most ape thing is you can swing, and they're called the lesser ape. So I've seen video, and then I've read some research that says that the longest lache, just so if you haven't figured out what a lache is yet, it is where you swing and then you release, right? And then you go somewhere.
Usually forward.
But
not restricted.
You
could lache backwards, although the technique is a little weird.
Yeah, and then it's the expansion on that technique, right? So the max distance that I've heard through the grapevine, someone can confirm or challenge this if you can find proof of a greater distance, was 32 feet.
For gibbon, that is not.
Yeah, not a human.
Humans have not. I think humans have maybe touched close to half that distance, if even.
Yeah,
I feel
like
16. Yeah, I think
16.
it was Dan Teal. I think
it was Dan Teal way back in the day.
So how is that
Apex
measured?
Olympics. It was
bar to bar.
They had to slide the bar.
Oh, it was actually regrabbed.
Yeah.
At 16 feet.
Yeah.
With a giant at the front?
It was pretty much a giant. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he did a cast to handstand.
Yeah, it was casting, so
And
yeah,
then
pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
So 16 feet is, as far as we know, our human record, although I'm sure there's some undocumented. It's been years since then, right, Justin? I think that was probably, I don't know, 7 years ago? 8 years ago, maybe?
I was a wee lad.
Yeah. So I'm sure somebody's probably beaten that, but in any case, we'll say the humans are at 16, 17, and the animal kingdom, which doesn't beat us in a lot of things as humans, but it certainly trumps us in this, was what again? Was the gibbon world record?
Yeah, I think it's 32 feet.
Which is absolutely insane. If you're listening, definitely it's worth this YouTube search gibbon swinging to just be blown away at the majesty of these creatures when they're in trees. It is very clear that they spend. Actually, you might know how much of their life is spent in the tree, never touching the ground.
Oh, it's almost all of it. And then the other interesting facts about gibbons are that they actually are similar to hipsters in that they move out. They like to live about 2 miles away from each other, right? This is the hipster who would build their tiny house, right? They're tiny house hipsters. They have kids, and I think it's just a couple of years in, once the kid starts to mature, that kid moves out and then has to move 2 miles away. They are they're monogamous, and then they also send their kids to college, and they keep great distances and kind of stay at home and drink coffee. But the other cool fact about them is that they are the only other than us, primarily bipedal from like the waist down. So they're very biased to swinging because they got these yoked out shoulders and these arms. They're just so like, they're kind of similar to mine, right? If I had shorter legs, right? Really long arms
My
and things.
legs on your, yep.
Yes, your legs on my body, we'd be at Gibbon Town right there. So they do that, but their hips are best positioned to walk bipedally. So if you notice them, you'll see them in a squat. You know, they'll squat like this. You know, they have their like, you know, human like resting squat, and then they'll walk around. There's some videos out there of them, like you can Google them, like messing with tigers and stuff, baby tigers. Yeah. So Google that. It's very interesting if you start differentiate. I think earlier on, I didn't know much about monkeys and apes before I started studying anthropology and movement in this way, and human movement, because you kind of go backwards to figure out what's the best position for standing and jumping, and what tools may we have, evolutionarily speaking, that we've tapped. What can we rediscover? There's some secrets there, but those guys are the funnest because in many ways, some of their cool skills are very close to the stuff that we're after, the artifacts in our biology that we're after, and you kind of watch them and see. So they run around, okay, on their legs, and they swing around, and yeah, they're really super cool. And once you start looking at the apes, you know, so we were talking about, this is the list, right? So we've got gibbons, we have orangutans, we have gorillas, and we have chimpanzees, and then you can kind of have the bonobos, right? They're a little bit different, but they fall in that category. Those are the guys we're talking about. If you start looking at them in contrast to just like, you know, the monkeys that are like breaking in people's houses in India and stealing all their like chai or whatever, right? Like those. That's what
I do. That chai, man.
Those guys are definitely doing some parkour, but those types of monkeys seem more like, when you start looking at them, and you really watch the differences, you know, not to offend those monkeys, but they seem more like pets. Like you watch them and you're like, this is obviously like, I might, you know, but you look at apes, and the more you look at them, you're like, ooh, this is like a buddy. Like there's so many characteristics that are similar to us. You start to realize, okay, this is obviously, apes are not monkeys, and monkeys are not apes. This is very clear when you start observing them, but I think early on we just don't have a lot of interaction with them, and they get lumped together. But their apes are very special, very endangered, and very relatable in so many ways. Very intelligent, very interesting. Yeah. Monkeys are too, but they're tricksy. And those baboons, they just eat anything. They're weird.
They're mischievous.
Yes, they are. Yeah, mischievous, but apes are very intelligent. The lache, sorry to bring it back. We were on a little trip through the jungle there. Yeah. Sorry. So we have the lache, which is the secret artifact of human movement that only parkour is really exploring at this point. You do see some of that in like TV on like ninja shows. Like I would say like it's common to see the swing and then the regrab. But the big difference between that and the way we do it is the parkour regrab is extremely graceful. Like if you can imagine someone who's just like, all right, and he's gonna get the gap, right? He's got this big swing and he throws and then he grabs, and there's like this jerking motion, and then there's no then taking that energy and converting it into the next grab, and something that we would more commonly call brachiation, which is moving with the arms, right? The parkour regrab is different and graceful, and how would you guys describe that as how is that different, and what does it do, and why would we do it like that?
Well, I mean, from the obvious that it's like carrying the momentum. It's like the upper body equivalent of like a plyometric jump for your legs, right? So when you see parkour athletes doing long lines, a plyo is when they're impacting the ground and taking off immediately right after. And it feels like when you watch it, it looks like they're just floating, like they're just tapping the ground, like crouching tiger, hidden dragon, where they're just like
or like a kangaroo, where it's just like
or just like boing, 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 right? And you're just like, wow, they're like, you look closer and you're like, wow, they're like covering like 10 feet in each bound on that. Like that's incredible. So that's a plyometric for the legs, right? And the lache regrab is like a plyometric in that the momentum just continues and it looks almost effortless. right? But it's so incredible. And it's actually, what's awesome about it is that unlike just grabbing the bar and then just like yanking on all that, you know, shoulder tissue to absorb that impact, it's actually less impactful and less damaging on the shoulder to do those sorts of things, right? So it's
because
graceful.
there's no unnecessary tension. It's like you just get snatched on the other one. Like if you just swing and try and like grab, you just like whack, right? It just like, no wonder people are like tearing their shoulders up. It's like a poor kipping technique in CrossFit or something.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's that, and then if not done at volume, there's the butterfly kip, which is a little more graceful, but doing them for volume, I mean, it's a technique that if you do a few, it's probably a little less. But I think that that's a big difference you've got to look at. When you look at a parkour athlete, person training parkour who does a lache with a regrab, it also allows them to, let's say there's 3 bars in a row, start on 1, swing up, release, their body weight shifts forward, but their center of gravity stays behind them instead of just traveling completely forward. And then by the time they grab, it swings like a pendulum up and then tosses them in the air to grab again. And we see gibbons doing this. Mm-hmm. They do this as well. But that's
is there a video of a gibbon doing consecutive?
Oh, gibbons, yeah, they
except they're usually doing it with one arm.
Yes.
It shows just the absolute dominance they have. Because they'll go and then you'll see in a lache when you release from the bar naturally, right? Like your hips are gonna lead the motion because in a swing your head stays closest to the bar. So you release, and then to get the regrab, you essentially have to compress yourself, bring your knees to your chest, and allow your hips to travel or stay in your chest to then get back in front of the motion, right?
Yep.
In order to grab the bar again. And gibbons will be able to do that same can't. Travis is, for those of you listening, Travis is here.
That's why you watch the video on YouTube.
But gibbons will do that same mechanic, that same shift of hips to chest replacement, except with one arm. They'll release with one arm and reach with their other one, and they'll still get that shift and grab, which just shows an absolute dominance in swinging, and also just an unbelievable amount of strength in that shoulder girdle area that just like, humans are a little heavier than gibbons, but I won't use that as a full excuse.
But I will say that this is some like that bias on that skill is why sometimes I think you actually see gymnasts aesthetically looking more like gibbons. Because they'll be like yoked out on top, and then they've got these like little white tights on, and they're like because they don't jump like we jump.
Gymnastics definitely needs a style update, man.
That's all right.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Like, is a good question here. Other than lacrosse, which had its origins in Mesoamerica, and Iowa too, yeah.
No. I said which is like the Midwestern. Oh yeah, for Canada.
Oh, we're learning Midwestern.
Yeah,
and
sorry.
Actually, is gymnastics one of the oldest sports in the world?
Yeah, it'd be Greek Olympics, right? Is where it started. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got.
But also, I guess I'm not a huge history sports buff. But I think we know that it trumps the more specific, like esoteric sports, like baseball or tennis or something like that. But
I think the earliest games, like sports games that I can think of, I'm pretty sure those like Aztec head bowling or whatever.
it'd be like strongman competitions in Greek and like gymnastics.
Yeah.
From like your early Olympics.
And head soccer. South American head soccer.
Yeah. Yeah, with your shrunken heads.
So in that way, soccer may actually be the oldest.
Oh. We'll have
to do some research on that. Anyway, it's morbid. We've gone down a dark path. This is history, folks. It's okay. It's on. It's still family friendly. You're gonna learn it in school. Cool. So the lache is a magnificent example of parkour and has really high athleticism, especially the single arm. My goodness. That's done very well. I've seen people brachiate and kind of catch and regrab, but not a big old. I've seen a few people, very light people doing those. But yeah, let's talk about that. That's on the spectrum of super athletic, and I feel like when we talk about these things and what can be done in parkour by people, oftentimes it feels less and less permissible to participate in. So that's the athleticism. That's the athletics of parkour. What's the other side? What's the art? Like, obviously, the most baby of baby laches is still a lache, and it's probably doable by most, reasonably fit people at a basic level, because it may just be, instead of just like swinging and letting go like you're on a playground swing or something like that, learning even to go 2, 3, or 4 feet. Let's say, I'm gonna imagine a scenario here where I still think this is parkour, and you guys can tell me if it isn't anymore, right? What your thoughts are. So let's say you're doing a hike and you come across a little stream and you see a branch over the stream that you can grab with your hands. It's not out of reach, but you're gonna try not to get your feet muddy. And this gap is maybe just, a few feet. You could probably jump over it, but the branch is maybe by your head and you decide you don't want to get hit in the head that day, all right? You want to risk it. So you could swing and lache, release, and land on the dry side of that stream. Is that parkour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
That was a very detailed, very specific scenario.
Right, just trying to make it
But
relatable.
maybe not an uncommon one.
Not an uncommon one.
So it's one that I always hoped I would run into, but I never did. I never did. Never have I ever used parkour where I was like, oh my gosh, one day someone's gonna need me. I'm gonna need to get this soccer ball off the roof. Maybe that's probably the only one.
Yeah.
But really, getting on top of the roof was just easier just going through the window and upstairs. So.
It's like Bruce Lee's.
Have you guys ever used parkour for?
Oh yeah, I used it
like-
I used it just 2 weeks ago when the quarantine was starting, because my wife Carly is letting the cats into the side yard to play, and one of them is Stitch. He's very cautious, and he's typical cat, so he goes out there and he prowls around, but as soon as a car drives down the driveway, he comes back to the door. My other cat, Crash, has never seen trauma in his life, so he thinks everything is there to just dote and love on him. But they're not allowed to get on top of the fence or over the fence, right? Well, one day I'm out there eating lunch, not paying attention, and Crash jumps over the fence, right? And I'm like, hey, get back over here. I'm yelling at him, and I'm whistling for him to come back, which for those of you that have cats, that is a trainable thing, that you can get them to come on the whistle.
To return on a whistle?
Yeah. But of course, because he's a little stink, he didn't. And the fence is maybe 6 feet tall or something like that. It's just super small. So I just pop vault over it. And I swear the look in my cat's eyes when I jumped over the fence was wow. Oh my God. I didn't know you could do that too. Yes. And it was because I was just all right, you're not going. So I was boom, popped over the fence, jumped down on the other side and scooped him up. And in the time that it took me from one side of the fence to pop over, land on the other side and scoop him up, he was did not expect that. And so then I curled him under and popped back over the fence, took him inside and scolded him, which he immediately forgot. But yeah, that was a super easy parkour, pop vault, boom, pop on over. So
yeah, so I think that I was thinking about this earlier, and I'm well, really, it's about the intention. I guess that's when you can really start saying that it's parkour, is when you have the intention. Because I talked last time about sort of the spirit, which is just being a kid and playing, but the discipline itself, when are we actually wading into the discipline? I think a lot of it is the intention, and then actually trying to refine it, trying to get better at it, or apply it. You know what I mean? It's if you're when do you start training martial arts? Is it when you started wrestling with a sibling when you were a kid, or a cat if you're very lonely? Things like that. So right, it has to be rough. That's actually a rough training partner, cats. Very rough. And then so there's that. Then but it's just if someone were to say to me, I don't think I can train parkour in any degree, and this isn't a discipline, or this isn't something I think I can do. I've only been watching, outtakes from The Office, and whoever, gets on TV to do crazy stunts, right? I would say, well, do you ever plan to jump, right? Is it not if you're going to give up on parkour, at least in principle, are you not just giving up on even jumping? I mean, where's the line between jumping over a puddle and doing parkour?
Yeah, I think intention's definitely a big part of that. But I think that example might be bad because not long ago I saw on my Facebook feed somebody had posted, and it was like, we get mad at video game characters for not being able to jump, comma, well, when was the last time you jumped in real life? And it had like some 200 likes on it, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And people were like, I don't think I've jumped in years. And I'm like, your feet haven't left the ground at the same time in years. So the jump, people might be like, yeah, I actually don't jump. If you're listening, you need to jump.
Wait, so is this a comment you posted? I missed
No. This came
This
up on
sounds
my
like a
feed.
you comment for sure.
Oh,
But it was
but
on the
I-
feed? That's awesome.
Yeah, no,
What
this
a
came up on
good,
my feed, but yeah, I also get
motivation.
upset when my video game character can't jump, or
Yeah.
when they jump and it's like 2 feet.
Yeah, oh.
That frustrates me to no
Mhm.
end, because that's just poor game mechanics. But yeah, no, so like some people actually don't jump. So I think a more apt analogy might be: are you never planning on moving outside of walking to the car? Right?
Yeah,
Are you
but that
never
may-
planning on doing something more dynamic than just walking? Because if you're ever planning on hiking, if you're ever planning on taking the stairs 2 at a time, because you're in a rush, or down 2 at a time, which is definitely more dangerous. Right? If you're not planning on doing anything more dynamic, then sure, ever, like more dynamic than a simple walk, then sure, parkour is not for you. But
I don't know, because I think I know we're taking this to the extremes. We've talked about humans who are lacheing 16 feet, and now I'm talking about is walking
The more
parkour,
mundane.
right? Right. But I can imagine a scenario where you have someone. Obviously, this would not be like most classes are built to teach people general fundamentals, and they're at a general level of fitness, right? A more typical level of fitness. But I could imagine like a scenario where like if someone were to work on skills specific to parkour, like balance, rail balance, balance on beams, balance on uneven surfaces, and deliberate jumps, steps, walking, understanding just what a basic stride is, learning how to hop again. Like, I don't know, like I could see somebody who is potentially maybe even in like a walker state, or somebody who would come out of an injury and maybe they've been cleared from a PT or whatever, or maybe some of what we do is analogous to that at least. But I could totally see someone going from being really bad at even walking to being really good by training the things that we do on the outside of that.
yeah, as far as like balance or something like that.
Well,
But
I just think it pays out the other direction too, right? So like I could see that, like, let's say your problem is just like walking, right, deliberately, or it's not clean, or it's not mindful. But even walking matters. Like if you're outside and you walk in a way where the weight distribution is poor, you're leaning the wrong directions, you're real heelsy in everything you do, even though walking is rolling heel to toe often. And then I put you on a surface like wet grass or ice. A parkour athlete or a person who trains the discipline of parkour is going to have a general awareness that's going to be way better than somebody who's just like, oh, I went to my PT and they stretched me out and I walked on the line a little bit, now I'm good to go. Like there's more to parkour as a competence than.
Yeah, I guess maybe to rephrase mine, plan is the wrong verb. Expect, right?
Expect.
If you don't ever expect that you will, or rather, if you do expect that you will always walk on the same even surface with the same patterns with nothing changing ever, then parkour is not for you. Which is, of course, a tongue-in-cheek like way of saying that parkour is for everybody.
Yeah, I would
Because
say
you will walk across ice or a rock or a grass yard, or you'll have to go down the stairs a little faster, or up the stairs a little faster than usual because you forgot something. That everybody moves at different paces.
Parkour is maybe yet to be understood by you. The discipline, you just may not even be aware that that's a thing, right? That you can get better at that. I have one student, a private client of mine, who's in his 60s, and he came back to me and he said, hey, he's like, oh, I really think that training's paying off. And I stepped off the curb the other day and I rolled my ankle and then I just sort of like bounced back, right? Like my weight, I didn't put all my weight on it. I sort of felt what was happening and then I made the adjustment and then I kept on walking.
That's a really good realization right there. I think that when you like notice very quickly that you're about to do something that might cause injury, and you just your body and your just your awareness clicks in and you're able to see yourself. I've done that so many times on a sprained ankle.
Yeah, and you just don't.
That's a really good indicator. Yeah.
And we don't even think about it, right? You're just like, oh, I almost did it and I didn't.
Yep.
But for someone who's not training the discipline, they might be like, oh, I rolled my ankle again. I roll it once every month, and you're like, wait. This should be part of the assessment. How often do you break and sprain stuff?
Yeah.
Right? And if someone's like, oh, yeah, break or sprain something, bone break once every 6 months, sprain every quarter or whatever, right? You can be like, wait. And what were you trying to do, right? Because if it was a 16-foot lache and you weren't ready for it, okay, there's that. But if you're like, oh, I just stepped outside. And oftentimes we feel that way, like it's always the lame stuff we get injured on. But I think that the intention and the awareness is there. So I think that's why I'd like to challenge people. So if anyone's listening and they're like, I don't think I can do this, or there is secret knowledge to be found in the discipline, and part of it is just deliberately, I wonder if are you actually trying to get better in that domain? And I really think that by domain, I mean your body in relationship to the physics around you at a very basic level. That's where we start. And that's why we walk like cats and swing like gibbons, and everyone's like, oh, why do they move like that? I think that's...
Yeah, I think, like, what is, when you guys are talking about parkour, because we've all had to explain what we do, and I think, Travis, you've got into parkour a while ago, but maybe you dodged,
7 years,
maybe you dodged it a little bit. But how many times have you had to explain what parkour is to somebody when talking about what it is that you do?
Yeah, it comes
Is
up...
it every time? Is it half the time?
It's as much as I have energy for it.
Yeah, so when Justin and I were starting, it was 100% of the time, every time, sometimes to the same person 2 or 3 times. And that was like that's the OG days of parkour, where like even we didn't know how to spell it until we learned how to spell it. But I think like it's very easy when people who are not training parkour in some capacity to look up what it is and see very high level parkour athletes doing laches and these amazing things. And then the most common response is when you ask them, you should give it a shot, they're like, oh, I got my back injured.
Yeah. Try that when you're my age.
Yep.
Okay,
Oh,
guess what? How old are you? Oh, I've had that happen recently. I had someone come to me and they're like, wow, when I was your age, I could have done this. And I was like, oh, how old are you? And they told me their birth year, and I ended up being 1.5 years older than them.
Oh, that's kind of embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
But
It's good.
It shows a
Poor
really
guy.
good point that if you're not doing parkour, it is not always the high-flown, crazy things that you see. It's just like, it's as if everybody treated like weightlifting, and they looked at like Thor. What's his last name? Bjornsson or Bjorn? Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about real Thor.
Yeah, no,
Or not real Thor, fictitious Marvel Thor.
No, not Marvel Thor. The real Thor, the like world's strongest man.
Yeah.
And they're watching him like deadlift 1,100 pounds, and they're like, I could never do that. Yeah, you definitely could never do that, but you don't start deadlifting 1,100 pounds. And it doesn't have to be your goal. The same thing with parkour. You don't have to want to jump rooftops to also train parkour. You don't have to do all these crazy things or even want to do these crazy things to train parkour. So don't dismiss it as like, that's a young man's game, because I can tell you right now, I don't think the 3 of us are ever planning on putting parkour out of our book as we get older.
I don't know how I would. Like, it's just woven into what I do. Like I said, the spirit's always been there and the discipline was developed, right? So in some ways I've always done it, and I can tell when I give up. Like sometimes I rarely give up. And I never completely give up. But I can tell when I'm in that mindset that's not about growth. if you understand that.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like I'm not doing parkour, right?
Yeah.
When the intention isn't.
Right. I haven't felt that way in a very long time.
Yeah, I think that problem just shows up because it's really easy to describe parkour when you're using the craziest examples,
Extremes.
right? When people don't know what parkour is, it's hard to tell them that it's exercise and it's just a new way of moving, and it's like a way of exploring, what your body's capable of, and in a smaller fashion. It's way easier just to be like, it's skateboarding without the skateboard. You jump off stuff, you do flips, and people are like, oh, I get that.
Yeah.
Right? But it's just so hard to describe, like, oh, I get up and I just my shoulders feel good, so I feel like hanging and swinging today, and I'm just swinging to a wall. That's all I'll do today.
It's like simple.
People are like, swinging to a wall.
It's simple, but it's deep. You know what I mean? And that's why it's hard. It's like if you've got kids that are training, or you're starting to train and you're in the beginning of that journey, just know it's like martial arts, or in that way an art. It's like a poet or a painter, in that in Chinese culture it's called it's called kung fu, which is really just kung fu. That's where kung fu comes from. And if you look at the word for kung fu, which is pronounced kung fu, it's made up of characters that indicate what we're talking about. So the first character, gong, will go into Chinese. Now we already did anthropology. We'll go to like, what is kung fu? All right, so I'm going to tell you what kung fu is. The first character, gong, means work. The next character means power. You put them together, you get gong. Underneath, you have two, and then people. Two people working together over time, that's good kung fu. So
It's like a mathematical formula.
right, exactly. So fu has two, and then it has people. Ren, the character for so R is two, and then ren, like next to each other. And that is analogous. That word means like time or cooperation or time spent working together. I may have butchered that one a little bit, but anybody who knows better is more than welcome to tell me. And then gong gong means work, and then li means power, and that's what gong, the kung in kung fu means. So in that way, in Chinese culture, you don't have to be doing martial arts and fighting. They would look at someone like someone who does through the lens of Chinese culture, you would look at someone who practices the lache, for example, and it's really graceful, and it goes and they land, and then you're like, wow, that looks effortless. Chinese, through the lens of Chinese culture, you'd say that was good kung fu, because and literally would mean that. So we use kung fu to describe what's more appropriately described as Wushu, which is martial arts in Chinese culture, but what we really mean is like kung fu. And so in those old movies, they would watch and they'd be like, wow, that guy's kung fu is really good, right? They'd say that because you could look at someone and know that what they did would require time and energy and hard work, right? So a painter can have kung fu, but actually parkour is really close to it because, Bruce Lee said, what do you say about boards?
About boards?
Yeah.
There's too many quotes going through my head. All I can think of
Boards
is
don't hit back.
Oh.
Unless you do parkour.
Yeah.
And then they very clearly
According
hit
to
back.
physics,
They
hit
certainly
back
do.
equally.
They certainly hit back.
Just as hard as you do.
Your opponent in parkour is what? Probably some wood. Like most likely.
Metal or concrete.
Right, exactly. So in that way we interact with the elements. All right, I've totally gone off the rails on that one, sorry. But back to the extremes. Let's talk about that. So we had the fantasy of kung fu, but we also have the fantasy of youth. And let's talk about some flips. I feel like talking about some flips is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
The more aesthetic side of parkour.
The more aesthetics, the more artsy side.
The one people always need you to do when they see you do it.
What do
Do a
people
backflip.
do? A backflip. Right?
Yeah.
That is that's the chant. You just have to just be used to that. Like,
Just real quick though, let's throw out a number. How many backflips do you think you've done in your life?
Significantly less now than I did before. That's the only answer I know.
Yeah, I think I did my last backflip a week ago in my basement because I was like, I haven't done a backflip in a while.
Yeah.
So I threw a couple and I was like, okay, cool, I'm back.
is that how you intend to just like QA that as you get older?
Oh, yeah.
Just huck it in the concrete basement floor?
I've got like carpet. I've got the same like carpet bonded foam floor in my
Oh,
basement
yeah.
for my home gym.
Yeah.
So I have that in there, and I did it on that just in case, because I do recognize that I'm still a young man, but I'm not a young man. So I do take some precautions now, even though it has probably been like almost 15 years. I think it might actually be exactly 15 years that I've been able to do a backflip. So I do take some precautions still.
Yeah, we're about the same. I wonder if that's like that. Like, I think I've been doing backflips for about 15 years, even though I'm older than you. I feel like it's been about 15 years that I've been doing backflips.
Yeah, it's something right there.
Mine's
Maybe
maybe a little
off by
less.
a year or so, but
So where's your first backflip?
I think I've had backflips. I know I had done my first ones like in freshman, so that would be 14. But I didn't have a backflip until I must have been maybe 17 or 18.
We'll count like on any surface, even spring floor, as long as it's not a tramp, any reasonable surface where the technique was somewhat controlled.
Yeah, I can only imagine remember when people were like, "Hey, Justin, can you do a backflip?" I can only remember actually pulling the backflip at that instant when I was a junior, so I was 17.
17.
So that's when I say like I really had it was at the end of high school. So it took me a while. I think I had it when we first started doing classes. So I was 14, maybe 15 when I first did a backflip, but it took me forever. It's always taking me forever to get flips. Side flip took me like 2 years once I learned it. So I've always been really slow with my progression on my flips. A lot of it because of fear, and then the other one is just unwilling to land something when it hurts. So if I land it in a single way where it just doesn't feel comfortable, I just don't do it again until I can go back to a smooth landing.
Some of that's wisdom.
So,
I
hope so. I get a lot of flack for it, but that's just the way I always rolled, and yeah, it's kept me injury free for the most part. So, not about to leave that
I would
philosophy.
like to point out that Justin's only broken bone that he's ever had, aside from like he had like a toe, right? That you broke in football.
I don't think toes, unless it's like full,
I
like
know.
bends completely backwards. I don't think fingers and
It
toes
was pretty
count.
ugly looking, but no, it was
Yeah.
still a functional toe if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
But the only broken bone you've had is your shin, right?
Yeah,
And it was not a major one. It was
intramural soccer
yeah.
in college.
Oh,
So yeah, it was like a hairline fracture. So,
yeah, but soccer.
but yeah,
And that's like that, especially for somebody who's been doing parkour as long as we have. Like that's incredible, because broken bones seem to be so like commonplace in like a young athletic boy that they're like, oh yeah, he's probably broken his wrist or his arm or something a couple of times. And I'm like, no way. Like bones are pretty incredible in their strength. You should not be breaking them. That's not a thing. Like if you're getting to the point where regularly in your training you're breaking something, a bone, you need to take a step back and reevaluate your training process, because bones are not meant to break. That's why they're so strong.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely not expected
And
behavior.
that's not to like put shame on people who accidents happen to and they break bones. Like that does happen. I'm not saying like every break is like inexcusable. Wrong, you have failed. But if it's like a regular thing where you're like, oh yeah, I've broken like 4 bones, I've broken my forearm a couple of times from a couple of flips that I bailed, like you need to slow down.
Yeah,
I don't care what age you are, slow down.
One of Justin's strengths is that he's definitely not, we call that hucking and hoping, right? You can't huck and hope, and you really got to break down your movement and try and have the discipline, but people want it. I see this happen a lot with beginners, and sometimes this is why some beginners injure out, is that their mind has not tasted the freedom and excitement and the depth of experience that comes from the spirit of what we do. And they get a little taste of it, and they get so freaking excited, they're like, if I believe it, I can do it, right? And they just throw stuff, and you're like, whoa. I mean, then, this is why you need to come to find good instruction to whoever that is, because we're just hucking that stuff at home and hoping you land it. I mean, a lot of people did learn that way, but they've got the scars I've, knock on wood, I've fingers and toes, mild fingers, not like a full like, oh my gosh, my finger bends the other direction. Like fingers and toes excluded, even with martial arts, I've not broken a bone, knock on wood, in my 30s, it does not happen. My first backflip was in a little more controlled environment, and my first backflips were on like in a facility, like a gymnastics facility. I was able to land but I didn't do my first backflip that I landed until I was in my early 20s. And then I, like you, where people are like, oh, do a backflip, right? Like toss a coin to your Witcher, like backflip, right? Like, 'cause I'm not doing that stuff for free anymore.
Kill a monster.
Right, exactly. Right, kill a monster backflip. Actually didn't happen until I was like 29, somewhere between 29 and 31, when I really locked down backflips. And people out there are saying like, well, I'm too old for flips. Oh, I mean, if you take care of yourself, you're not too old to learn these things. Just to be more careful about it. So,
I also think it's important that like, don't phrase it as I'm too old for X, Y, and Z. Look, the reality is, if you don't want to do something because it doesn't interest you, it's okay to tell a parkour athlete or any athletic person, I have no interest in that skill.
Yeah, I'm not
in
interested in that
fact,
skill.
that's a more wise answer, right? Because the truth is, like, you're not demeaning yourself, and we talked last time about there's no self-deprecating humor, right?
Yeah.
So never make jokes or anything at your own expense. And saying I'm too old for that is a joke at your expense. Don't say that. Just say I don't want to learn a backflip, and that's cool. Not everybody wants to. I don't want to learn like a quad cork, which is a cork, which is a tricking move with four twists, 4 full twists in it, which for those of you picturing that in your head, it looks as insane as it sounds.
You need higher frame rates to capture the
yeah, you need
movement.
a 120 frame rate to capture all of that.
Yeah.
And I have no interest in learning that. I think it's absolutely incredible, the handful of athletes that can do that, but I have no interest in learning that.
Mm-hmm.
But you will never hear me say I am too old to learn that.
Yeah.
Even if I'm in my 90s, I will just answer, that's super cool. I have no interest in learning that. Though.
Right.
And we know they're not too old because they go skiing, and you're going, 30, 50 miles an hour on skis.
And my body
And
hurts
it's
when I ski.
far more dangerous to go that fast. Like, one thing that I really love about parkour is that it is self-limiting in like how much I can get injured, right? If I can only hit a wall as fast as I can run, I feel like my injuries can only be so bad.
Then run
But
slow.
when you're skiing, man, you're going like 50 miles an hour down the road. I know you guys are tracking the speed on your phone.
Yeah.
You're like, hit 60 today. Like, it's just, there's just nothing.
Yeah,
that can
60
save
at
you out of
60
crash,
is nuts.
60 at 60. You just started that.
Maybe that's actually something that now I am interested in that actually. I actually want to go 60 at 60 just to be like, I did 60 at 60.
Oh, God.
It might be worth
And
it.
a well-groomed run with a
Lots of
parachute.
powder, like lots of protection if I fall, but nah. And then the other answer might be I just don't have my robot legs yet.
True.
Yeah.
So first flip, what was your first flip? Because it may not be a backflip. A lot of people think, can you flip? And then people instantly go to a backflip. But oftentimes, there's a lot of other flips out there, guys.
Well,
I think
Backflip's definitely an anchor flip, but
a wall spin was definitely the first flip.
would you count that as a
I would
flip?
definitely call wall spin a flip.
Yeah.
It's upside down, back to normal, and I think it's probably one of the most approachable flips. I remember seeing the very first parkour video and Sebastian Foucault doing a wall spin, and immediately knowing I could do it. I just saw it and I was like, I'm gonna get that. Like,
Yeah,
it
it
can't
felt
be that
attainable.
hard, right? And so that's why I really like wall spin. It's like everyone can see themselves doing it.
So wall spin's where you approach a wall. Usually, slant walls are going to be easier, and that's a palm spin.
But I
But
actually just did a video on it.
and we just did a video on it. We'll link it so you guys understand what it is. All right, enough said there. All right, Cullen, link that in the bio.
First flip for me, I think was actually, it was a front flip, a very like gross like punch front in grass in like
Oh,
middle
yeah.
school.
Handsprings too.
Handsprings,
Being
definitely
up there
remember
first.
handsprings in the middle of the gymnasium with like a single panel mat and like a couple of my
Yeah, I
friends.
want to say foot to foot. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say foot to foot.
to
Let's
foot.
bring this a little
Okay.
bit more narrow because I was doing front handsprings. I remember doing that at like
Yeah.
8,
Yeah.
just running and flopping over. But like foot off, foot back down with inversion, right?
So then, yeah, I think officially it'd be the front flip, and then I think it actually went side flip, back flip for me. When I think about, and I think the reason for that, even though the front flip is actually, the fundamental flip's actually the hardest one to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, right.
Yeah. To get even
You
to
can
do
get over,
bad,
but
it just hurts when you do a front
It's
flip
just
back.
learning front flip without impact is so difficult.
It's a very hard skill to learn. And the side flip's certainly the most technical flip, but the easiest if you were like we actually have measured it with a force plate out of like all the flips, and the side flip's like maybe a third of the
Especially
amount of
at, like, a
power
Webster setup.
required to do a side flip from a back flip and a front flip.
Oh,
Or
that's
like it's
interesting. Didn't know that.
ridiculously low. Yeah, I tested that in high school actually.
So force plate, usually you checked force plate. Which flips did you check with the force plate?
Back flip, front flip, and side flip.
Okay, and was
So
that round
that- and
off too, or from standing?
No, just from standing. So
Standing
standing
back,
back,
standing
up,
side,
is standing
standing
on the plate.
Yeah.
Side flip was one step onto the plate, so I had the plate in front of me, and my side flip takeoffs are single leg takeoffs, so I step 1 foot onto the plate and then take off, and then it measures the peak amount of force on there, not the total over time, and then the front flip was standing on the plate.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Standing front flip.
Yeah, standing fronts are cut.
Shivers.
But anyways, yeah. So like, and I think the reason
I can feel the whiplash now.
I think the reason I did front, side, back is because I can see the direction I'm going, and for a lot of new athletes, that the ability to see where you're going takes a lot of the fear out of it, and that makes us feel like it must be an easier flip, right? But the truth is, the back flip is a very easy flip, and the physics involved are very simple, right? It's just super scary because you can't see the direction that you're going.
Yeah. So your first, you think it's front flip, first foot to foot nose.
I know it's front flip, yeah.
Okay.
But
So it went front flip for first three for you, or what?
Front, side, back.
Front, side, back. For me, it's I'm gonna throw a zinger on you. My first flip was actually a B twist.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah. So first flip that I could land was B twist, and after B twist, it was, I'm gonna say aerial. They were crummy aerials. They wouldn't score points in gymnastics. They definitely weren't like bad aerials, but they weren't beautiful. So I might count those, and then it would have backflip. So I think I'm actually B twist, aerial, backflip.
Yeah, I like those. I like those ones. Aerial and B twist can be pretty low impact. I've also seen people wreck themselves.
Yeah, the way I learned it was not low impact.
Yeah, if you're doing it, with progressions, like that B twist, man, people love to throw that thing. But I do too, I think, actually.
So if you don't know what a B twist is, a B twist is where
it's a full twist, but you're horizontal.
Your horizontal
right?
full twist,
So
yeah.
it's like a flip that never really goes all the way upside down, but you add a twist, and that is your inversion, I would say.
It, however, unlike the backflip, is not simple. Like
No.
No.
The physics involved is very
to
complicated.
throw yourself into a B twist. I mean, I've heard if you don't know what a B twist is, the equivalent would be you're gonna like duck under a fence and you're gonna stand up on like one leg and then while sideways essentially kick over your entire body and land again on the leg you stood up on, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like face the ground.
stand on one leg.
Jump and go totally horizontal with your legs and everything. Spin a 360 and then land back facing the ground.
I
It's
like
essentially
this.
a
I
B
like
twist.
this audio only B twist.
Yeah, this is a skill that we have yet to hone. So
Mine
this
is you're sitting on your bed, you jump onto your bed with your head on your pillow and your feet at the end of it, and then you do a roll to the other side of the bed, back to your feet, and just take the bed away, and that's your B twist.
So from one side of the bed to the other,
Yeah.
you jump, you roll across the bed, you
Back-
land on your
back-
feet. on
Yeah,
the other
that's
side,
a good
and
way
then
to describe
Take
it.
the bed
disappear
away, you got B twist.
Take the bed, take all the workout, you got a B twist. What do you know?
So it is a super incredible looking move, but yeah, that's interesting. I guess given your Wushu background, that makes sense because Wushu is pretty prevalent in a B twist is pretty prevalent in Wushu, right?
Yeah, you actually only had people working on B twists and aerials unless you studied the Southern styles, in which the more contemporary stuff that's more for exhibition and sport. Again, we're back on that spectrum of now leaning sport versus leaning towards art or discipline. Although I think discipline encompasses both. That's why I like to say discipline. But they had gainers. So in Southern
I
Fist,
actually have seen that in like Wushu, like the single or like the group where they have the 3 demonstrations.
yes.
I've seen people do gainers.
Yeah, that's called doilian. Yep, those choreographed fight scenes is basically, so a gainer is we talked about that last time in the last episode. Jesse did a window gap gainer, which is basically you run and then you kick one leg up or you pump off both feet and then you throw a backflip, but your center of mass is moving forward even though you're doing a backflip. And so sometimes those can be easier because you can get a leg swing into them and you can pull up into yourself, but more times than not, they're atrociously risky for your neck. So yeah, they're scary. They can be scary unless you're doing a really off access and there's some protection there. All right, cool. So what did you have, Justin? Real quick. So we had
My very first flip.
had front,
side,
back, B twist, aerial back, and
Yeah, I have wall spin. I did learn B twist pretty soon too.
so you might have
But I think it would probably be wall spin, front flip.
walls.
But I never liked front flip. So wall spin, front flip, regrettably, I still don't do them.
Yeah.
And then it would have been B twist, backflip B twist.
Backflip B twist.
So wall spin, backflip B twist.
Okay, nice, interesting. So we should think about that with our progressions and
Yeah, I mean, I think yours is actually closer to the progression that we teach students now, where we have aerial and we have butterfly kick as like in wall spin as our like really first inversions that we consider skills. I think those are awesome. They're all low impact and they're not as scary to approach or scary to fail.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think so. I like having flips that are. I mean, everybody wants the big ones. They want the front, they want the back, and I guess side. I would say side's really good because your risk for injury. But that's really what we're looking at: impact to the body, risk for injury. Those lower impact flips. Then I think we can go for. All right. Well, that's cool. So you guys learned those flips first, and then what flips are you working on now? Because I'm curious. Are you working on any flips? Are you interested? If you could work on one more flip right now, what would be the flip you would go for? Like, let's assume you have everything else in your library, right? It's good. You don't have to go back and get anything. If you assumed you were at your best for any of those flips, which is going to be pretty recent time anyway, what's your flip? What do you want to flip right now?
Yeah, I'm not too interested in learning any new flips. I've had corkscrew on and off for like a decade, so I really just want that one solid. I want that one like, hey, can you do a cork? Hey, can you do a backflip? That's what I need for.
You want mastery.
I haven't had it.
Cork is
Easy.
off axis backflip, so on axis is like up and down. Off axis is like the planet Earth, slightly off to one side. Tilt. Yep. And then doing essentially a backflip off axis and then a full twist landing back on your feet. So that's what a cork is for those of you listening.
Yeah, it's like it can be a running gainer full. Right? Yeah.
Yes, I just love describing flips without the show.
They get very complicated very
fast. It's tough on
so
audio.
Justin, you want mastery of the cork.
Yeah, because I have like backflip with the twist from both feet. I got that. I got butterfly twist. All those moves are really fun, and I don't quite imagine pushing them further.
You also have You have butterfly twist on both sides.
Yeah.
You have kick the moon on both sides.
Yeah.
And aerial on both sides, right? Which
it's
is
super rare.
pretty extraordinary. That's not common for athletes to have those. Like, it's super common for an athlete to have like cartwheel on both sides, right? And cartwheel is definitely a fundamental skill, but it's the higher level skills like the flips, to have them on ambidextrous like that requires a completely remapping of your brain and a lot of dedication to training. So I think that's 100% worth shouting out.
It's nuts, especially if you're thinking, I've seen you huck consecutively back and forth B twists several times, left, then right, then left, then right, until you just get dizzy enough to fall over. And just being able to throw B twist left, right is nuts. I'm sure I've seen other people do it, and I'm sure there are other people that can, but it's just so rare. I mean, and borderline unnecessary, but at the same time, it's so awesome. But I mean, what flip is necessary, really?
It does make filming a lot easier though, because if you get in you always get in situations where like if you're trying to film flips, you're like, but this is on my offside. I wish I had, this move on the offside. It makes filming with Justin a lot easier because
so
you're just
easy.
like, looks like you're gonna have to do the offside B twist on this one. He's like, okay.
Oh, it's been so easy. It's been awesome too, because it's like, okay, you guys, I've got it off this side, but I need to stand here because I twist left, and if we're gonna do it at the same time, I need a right twister on the other side, and just like, let's switch.
Yeah, it's been convenient.
Yeah,
I think it was a sacrifice of those harder moves, though. I think.
it was. You're right, because there's only so much time, right? Just to train. So okay, so cork. You want cork on lock? That's kind of I was hoping for a funner answer than that, but you kind of have that one. Let's assume you had it on lock. What's the other one?
Maybe jackknife.
Jackknife. Okay. Ooh, I don't even know if I'd count that as a flip.
We'll call them tricks instead of flips.
Okay, a trick. All right.
Yeah, it's hard. It's one of the harder tricks that I've had to learn. It requires so much flexibility.
Let's try and audio explain that one.
Jackknife. Oh, okay. Oh man, that one is tough. That would be it'd be a roundhouse where you do a 360 in the middle of your roundhouse. But before you touch the ground at the end of this 360 roundhouse, you need to do another 180 and throw in a hook kick, a kick coming from behind before you touch the ground. So there's a 360, a roundhouse. Before you do that roundhouse, or after you do that roundhouse, before you touch the ground, you're throwing another hook kick in.
Yeah, so it's tornado hook, or like
It's
540
hook, but without using turns that are esoteric.
So difficult.
Right, but
It's very difficult. Yeah, so just jump and spin twice while throwing two kicks in there. One's a roundhouse, one's a hook.
Yeah.
They look amazing too. They
so
look like there's about 4 twists in there when there's really just 2-ish. One's off the ground, one's on the ground, basically on one leg. That's a good one. I'm
That's
down.
a great one.
I think that's good. Yeah.
What about you, T? What's your trick?
I'm still thinking. I don't know. I know I asked that question, but I don't know if I. Now he's got me thinking trick, and I'm like, now if I got trick,
Kicks,
then
kicks
I
can go
anything.
forever, man. There's so many cool kicks out there.
What do you have one that's ready?
Oh, I got another one too that I never learned.
I don't. It's like tricks have never really been a huge priority for me in like my training and my movement. But I would love to have like a double full trick.
Oh yeah.
So like I can do a cart dub on like the air trick. I can land it probably 1 out of every 3 attempts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my other 2 attempts are like pretty close. Like I hit my feet and then I fall like onto my butt or something like that. So they're pretty narrow. And I can hit it on the spring floor like 1 out of every 6 attempts, but they hurt, so I have to throw them on the spring floor until I know I can land them every time on that air trick. So like I have like a cart dub, but it feels like it cheesed it, because it's not that hard for that. So I would love to have like a double twist just to say that I've got it and I have a trick. Most notably, I think the coolest and the most door opening trick of those would be the double cork. Because that's such a complex move, and then to have that as a double full would definitely make things like a double B, that's a double B twist, or even like a cart dub would definitely be a little more convenient, but I don't know if at least not now, I probably won't be dedicating a lot of time to like learning that. I have other priorities, but that would be my one, is a double cork.
I really need, so the one that this is my real answer, I need flyaway full. Like, so swinging on the bar, you backflip off the bar, and you do a full twist off the bar. Like, I know it's easy.
That's a gymnastics
I
discount.
freaking know it's easy, and it looks so cool and effortless, like flyways are. But
Flyway's a backflip off
man,
bar.
that twisting technique coming from your hands instead of from your feet, just like I just can't wrap my head around it. And it's something I've been trying forever. But you just need such a specific setup for tricks off a bar that really need a bar above a foam pit to be, to be safe, to take the fear out of it and just focus on the technique. So
yeah, I think there's tons of parkour athletes that have learned these high level skills like in like a deserted park in like
Yeah.
Latvia or something like that. And I would say that while that's like a necessary evil to pushing the sport, like those are savants. Just so everyone knows, like I think this is a message for like the young kids that are listening that also are really entrenched in parkour and in love with these high level athletes. The people that learn that way, they are what we would call a savant. They are people who are like supernaturally talented.
Naturally talented. There are freaks out there, man. There's some freaks out there.
And that, like, you may be that, but it's always smarter to just assume that that's not you.
Yeah.
Right? And to train as if that's not you, because you matter to your parents, you matter to your friends, you matter to yourself.
Yes.
And so, like, training that way comes with incredibly high risks. Anytime, the reason that, like, you know, despite having a gym for a number of years, Justin has not trained a flyaway full is because we just don't have the
best setup for it.
The exact best setup to guarantee that he's safe. And anytime that you're going upside down, there is a high risk of landing on your head. And head injuries are not something to play
Or even
around
neck and collar.
Yeah, if you're lucky,
Arm.
you're like, ow, my neck hurts, and for the next couple of days I gotta walk funny and like move slowly. If you're not lucky, that's
very bad.
That's catastrophic. So it's not worth risking that. So even if you are a savant, train like you're not, and you'll get better because of it. So please, like, don't be like, oh, I see this dude in like friggin' like Russia that's throwing things into the snow. That guy
Off a
is
16-foot story building,
either
16-story
that
building.
guy either like doesn't care, which is his own choice, or he's a savant. But either way, it's not smart for you to train that way. And even if you want to train that way, like, just ask your parents.
It's just
Be
not
like, no, don't do
sustainable.
that.
It's just not sustainable. It's like you may think you don't want to train for very long, but you really do. So just chill out.
Yeah, just you have time.
But again, I'm not your dad, so if you want to do that into the snow, like, just know that, like,
Yeah,
your risk is very, 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 very high.
And the consequences may be stuff that you're not thinking of, right? Like, everybody likes to think of like the consequences of like, what if you get hurt or what if you die? Well, there's a wide range of things between those two, right?
Yeah.
Hurt can be like I rolled my ankle, or I'm paralyzed from the neck down.
Yeah, but it's like in parkour,
So
you don't. I mean, we know this because our insurance agent tells us is that the risk of doing parkour is actually really. Everyone's heard of some injuries and whatnot, but statistically, this is about understanding your body in space, and it's just like when you get crazy, it's like doing any other thing. It's like you're just going to be reckless. You know, that might be a thing.
Yeah.
Back to flip. Wait, I forgot the flip.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just to summarize, since I was kind of a negative and pessimistic there.
Yeah, that felt a little dark. Can you bring
yeah.
it? Give us a palate cleanser, Jesse.
It's like driving.
Okay.
Okay. Millions upon millions of people drive every day, and though there are lots of accidents, you can drive safely. You can get into your car and drive and pretty much guarantee that you're going to get to your destination totally in one piece, safe and sound, right? Or even if you do get into an accident, it's going to be a fender bender, very small, nobody's going to get hurt, right? But if you get into your car and then you drive at 100 miles an hour everywhere you go,
Okay, it's dark again.
the chances of you getting hurt are very high. So my point is that parkour is just like driving. If you get into it and you drive smart and intelligent and you're not being, you have to actually try to be reckless in parkour to get hurt.
Yeah,
but
that's
if
a
you
good
do,
point.
that's your prerogative, that's your risk. But I would recommend that you just drive in between the lines and follow stoplights.
That's just, a lot of it's maturity, right?
Yes.
So I think that foster some maturity when you're training, and you'll have a better time because you can get deeper into the discipline.
And you can just it's time sometimes. Like, the longer you can spend training, the more you're gonna learn about yourself. And if you get injured, your training stops.
It's like what you can experience is yourself. That's a huge part of it. So your flip was
Your
what?
flip.
Oh,
Mine was
flip.
double cork, yeah. So we have to do your answer. Mine
so
was
my
double cork.
flip. Woo! All right, gotta go back and remember. All right, so I would say for me, the flip that I would like is, I think it's a cart full with a hook out, which is, what's that called?
Hyper cart full hyper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hyper
Something
hook.
like
Hyper hook.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having that on lock. One of our old coaches, Sean, is just so good at those, and I just think I was also an athlete I watch a lot. Who's another former like Wushu guy, but does he's actually on Jackie Chan's like stunt team now, like Andy Lay, and he just throws them in combos, and they're just so cool because it's basically an A twist with a hook kick out, right? So you're going upside down. When you're upside down, you spin. And then like your left leg just sort of like, well, if you're a left twister, like your hook kick just comes out of freaking nowhere. It's like this ball of spin in which a hook kick, like a leg just comes out and like looks like it just like tears something apart. And then boom, you land, and you can land in a very like asymmetrical stance, which makes it look cool. It also makes it something that flows nice in combos.
So the Outrun audio description for that would be,
so do a cartwheel with no hands, spin around.
we have aerial. Cartwheel, no hands is aerial.
Okay, right. So cartwheel with no hands, which is an aerial. Do a full twist upside down.
And we have an A twist, aerial twist.
And then you're gonna do a hook kick as you sort of are upside down. So an upside down hook kick.
As you come
Yeah,
down,
you can say upside down hook kick, land on one leg, and then strike a pose of, looking really cool, I suppose. Yeah.
So that would be A twist, hyper hook.
Yep.
Would be the official name of that one. And then before that, you want to add in a cartwheel, right?
No.
Or do you just want the A twist hyper hook?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
I don't even know if it has to be.
So there you go. So when you hear
Some tricker would break down the exact. Be like, actually, that's okay. It's like the comic guy on The Simpsons, right? I'm just like, I don't care. You know what the freaking move is, all right?
yeah, the terminology gets very complicated.
Right.
We won't dive into that, but yeah, that's a good one. I like that. It's almost like Justin's jackknife.
Yeah.
Which is like,
but I actually have that one when I've actually stretched out. It's pretty decent.
That's the problem with it, yeah.
You gotta
stay
be
it
flexible.
requires a lot of mobility.
Sure, yeah. And I think I may have accidentally landed the really crummiest version of what I've just talked about on the air track a few times, but it was like it has to be a good kick. That's what makes that really cool for me, is when we'll link out some examples of I like Andy Lay, so we'll link out an Andy Lay kick in there. It just it looks so cool, but you have to be flexible. So like both of these, what was yours again? You were dub court?
Dub. Dub court.
Dub court. Maybe not that one, but Justin and I's tricks both would require a lot of mobility in them.
Yeah.
In order to, and that's what makes them unique, is you have to be able to flip like that. Okay, so I am gonna talk real quick about students.
Let's wrap up on that one.
Yeah, let's wrap up on that one. But what we wanted to talk about is, as we were having the conversation of what was our first flip, what's the trick we want, how long were we so we're talking about, these guys who've been, Jesse and Justin, you guys have been training the discipline since you were, in your, was it 11, 12 when you guys started? We started 11, 13? So preteen,
11, 12.
We'll say preteen. Right, preteens, you guys are starting to train in this way. Parkour as a discipline. I have background on martial arts, some of it, exhibition style. So there's some acrobatics and some similarities there. And certainly I've been training discipline for a while, but I didn't really start training parkour until I was about 29 as the discipline. And so I've been training it, into my 30s. And they were talking about getting flips and tricks in our late teens, early 20s. I'm talking about putting my stuff on lockdown and discovering and unlocking new stuff in my 30s. Our students right now are unlocking this stuff sub 10. You know what I mean? So, we were talking about that. Isn't that great, or is that not the goal? Isn't that what makes your system and make you bring value, is to help people to learn these things that.
Yeah, no, I use the term diagnostic, processes or procedures to determine problems or successes. And one of the biggest things that I use as a coach is, our skills that took me a while to learn are my clients or students learning that faster than I did. and that's an indicator of successful coaching for me. And now that you know, I'm not coaching every single class here in the gym, what that tells me is A, what we already knew, that we have amazing coaches, but B, that we also have amazing processes for how we teach those kids. If a 8-year-old has a standing back tuck on the spring floor, right? Something that at 8 I didn't even think that I wanted, but now we have kids who are that age who know that they want that and are able to achieve that with successful coaching. Is it absolutely an indicator of awesome coaching, right? That their coaches, and not to take away the achievement from the student either,
right?
That's smart practice on the student side, and that's smart coaching on, you know, the education side.
Right, and we're grooming good students. I think that might be the differentiation there. Is we're not taking ownership over their accomplishments, but we are taking, we are calling it an achievement that they've fostered that competence as a student, because that's what a lot of times people who are homegrown don't have. They don't know how to be a student. So they go out and they huck their stuff on mattresses in the backyard or whatever at best until they get it or get injured. One of the two, right? So it's very binary. And, you know, we're bringing them in and we're taking kids who are maybe a little too overzealous and sort of being like, hey, why don't you try this progression first? And sometimes that can feel controlling to them, but over the long run, they can find more discipline that way. And then we're taking kids to the other direction who have the courage to walk into a room without their parents being in the room and now participate in an athletic endeavor or a discipline or an art or whatever you want to take.
It's like balancing that, right?
Right.
Like fostering confidence and, you know, confidence, discipline, confidence and discipline in children who may not have been exposed to any sort of sports or training or athletic training, or even just like, like display, because the truth is when you're in class, there's a lot of people that can watch you attempt your skills, right? Whether that's not just your class, that's the other classes, that's anybody in the viewing mezzanine. And that requires a lot of confidence. So we're taking those kids who lack that confidence and, you know, they're fostering that growth. And then we're also taking the kids who are like, I would throw anything in front of anyone. Right? They're like, I'll just go for it. And we're like, oh, let's go ahead and rein that in just a little bit for sustainability reasons. And we're seeing great success on both of those fronts, right? Like we're seeing those kids who would have injured themselves by now,
just likely
with their intense desire to learn, right? That fervor to learn, and we're not stamping out that fire, but we're just trying to channel that heat in a more sustainable direction. And we're also trying to take a little bit of that heat and give it to the kids who don't have it.
Right.
And balancing those out. Average it out sounds kind of, nothing about our students is average.
Right.
So I'd like to start with that. But
okay.
You know, we're trying to, and I think it's awesome to see that, and you know that success is reflected in the success of our students.
Yeah, we have that, and we have. Just side note, we're definitely not like behavioral psychologists. I mean, we may play them on the internet, but that's not like we have degrees in or anything like that. So I would say that it's not quite like a martial arts school where you might put your kid in to sort of understand discipline in that way. We're much more liberal in how we approach training. It's definitely like just solid mentorship and guidance, and it does require some degree of intention on the passive side, or discipline on the over-the-top side to even train with us. But those are usually fringe cases that can't find really solid footing in our methods for teaching. And even then, privates can probably handle most of those situations. But I love that about the culture, and just the number of people that I know. And sometimes I know what people are up to, and sometimes I don't even know what they've been working on. They come out and they achieve something, and that's something that I think is different from traditional sports or martial arts. It's oftentimes when students surprise us when they come and they do something like, oh, I've been working on that. Well, that doesn't happen in martial arts or traditional. You just work on a technique that, you know, your master or your coach didn't give you, and that was the only thing you could do. Like a coach in gymnastics probably knows every single thing you're gonna do and the bounds within that, and oftentimes are controlling that. Whereas we're more on alignment with like the freestyle side of things, like, you know, freestyle sports like skate, like BMX, like b-boy, hip hop, right? Where somebody's you might not know, you're giving them the scaffolding, you're giving them these basics, and then you're working them through discovering themselves, but they'll come and throw stuff that you don't even understand. I mean, even something that we were talking about backflips being simple, but I remember Phil, who's a 7-year-old student who was doing one of our band challenges, which is an obstacle course designed for 7-year-olds, but he's doing a more advanced version of one of the challenges I couldn't remember. And it gets time for him to go, and he leads with a standing back tuck, and then does the course. And I'm just like, wait, what? Oh my gosh! Like my mind was just blown that I was just like, oh. Yeah. So that's
so good, right?
He's
Oh
so
my
good,
gosh.
right?
Yeah,
So,
I think maybe he's 8 now.
he's 8 now, I think.
But yeah, backflip at 8. Oh my
Oh,
god.
I'm pretty sure he had it 7, dude. Standing back tuck at
Yeah.
7. I mean, it was like a little like kind of like it wasn't the cleanest one, but it was like kind of like a more like
But-
monkey style backflip.
But
right?
nobody would look at it and be
Nope,
like,
it counted.
that doesn't
sure
count,
counts.
right?
I
So,
mean, right.
That's what's cool. Yeah, and I'm super proud of our students for their accomplishments, and I'm super proud of our coaches for guiding our students to those accomplishments. right?
Yeah.
That in order of like credit where credit is due, like student first, coach second. Like I think that's
Yeah, absolutely.
because
Coaches
like you were
deserve a
saying,
lot of
being a
credit for that.
student is a skill.
Mhm.
And it's not one that everybody has, especially like parkour athletes. That's probably one of the hardest things is parkour athletes are awful students.
Can be, for sure. Because it's
as
rebellious nature just in
Yeah.
everything, right? A lot, but it can go the other direction too. Because I encounter a lot of martial arts schools where everything is like, oh yes master, yes master. Like there's no spine. Everything is too far on the discipline side of things. So I can wrap up here. So there's like, so basically we have like one side of the spectrum, which is you're an anarchist, you won't listen to anybody, and that can be that super rebellious, independent person. And then on the other side of things, we have this, you're a student that wants, everything has to be permissible, right? It's almost like the goody two-shoes of like, I don't even know where that term comes from. I'm sure it's like a 50s or something like that. If somebody knows what that really came from, let me know. But we know the analogy, right? It's just the student that's so focused on working within the box and being the best at that. It's just like, we want to find something in the middle, right? We're not trying to be that, like, we don't want these yes man students, but man or ma'am, and then we don't want these students who are just absolute anarchists, because I just don't think that's what's best for balance in learning and in life. So
It's a happy middle.
happy middle. On that, I've become aware of how hungry I am.
I think that's what we wrapped up with last time.
That's just gonna be the thing.
Our-
That's
our
the
hunger.
That's the
That's the
Yeah.
crux of like just being an athlete is like when hunger calls, you answer. So
Hunger is calling, and we must end our show because the stomach requires offerings.
because then eventually the mic's gonna start picking up the grumbling of our
Other
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. I was already worried about that. I could hear mine. I'm like,
Yeah, I saw you
Your
sneak
mic was
away
in
for a
there.
second, Justin. I'm pretty sure
Get
you
a
got
little snack,
snacks.
get a little snack.
All right, you guys, thanks so much for listening. It's been a great episode, and we can't wait to talk to you guys again next week. Catch you later.
Later.